In this video, I'm going to show you the top 5 most common questions that are asked in co-op food interviews, and I'm going to show you how to plan brilliant answers that will get you a job working at the co-op. So let's start with the question that comes up in basically every single co-op interview and is of very great interest to them, and that's simply, what hours can you work at the co-op? And if you blow this question, you are just not going to get the job. It is so important that you prepare a good answer to this. So fundamentally, what you want to first show is that you've got flexibility, that you're open to a wide range of times and you're going to be useful to the business. You also want to make a point of emphasizing that you're very reliable and you're going to be there on time. You want to show a can-do attitude that demonstrates that you're really committed to your job. If you immediately start answering this question by giving a list of all the times that you can't do and all the times that you'd rather not work, that's very negative. So a lot of people say, I can't do these times, and I can do all of the other times. Well, that's a very negative way of doing it. Don't do it that way. The way to answer it is to think about what they actually want from an employee. So let's look at the things that the co-op like. They like you to say things like that you're happy to work to meet the business's needs and that you're able to work during the normal opening times of the store. If you're happy to work weekends, evenings at short notice, and also if you're open to overtime, these are all good things to mention. So generally, you want to try and say that you're open to working anytime where the store is open and that you can do a range of shifts, because that's really the perfect answer and what they fundamentally want to hear. So that's how you answer that question. Let's look at how you actually prepare for your interview, because they're going to want you to know about the co-op and you need to know the fundamentals. And they might just ask, what do you know about the co-op? Or they'll ask questions to see what your knowledge of their actual business is. So I'm going to show you the key facts that you need to know to be well prepared for your interview. If you are asked directly, what do you know about the co-op? The way that you answer it is you start by saying the obvious facts that everyone knows. Then you show that you've done good research, which really goes a long way to impressing them, and then drop in a few facts that only very few people would actually know. And I'm going to run through those facts that you can have ready for your interview. So fundamentally, the co-op is part of the cooperative group. That is the larger company that controls the cooperative societies. So it is part of what we call a consumer cooperative movement. So this is, instead of having companies that are for-profit businesses, that actually the places where you shop are owned by the customers that actually go there. The co-op itself isn't a private for-profit business with rich owners. It's actually owned by the customers who go there and shop. And it pulls all of the buying power of its thousands of stores together into what we can call centralized buying, where one central organization buys huge amounts of products and can negotiate very good prices on behalf of their members. It is, as I say, a membership organization. All the people that have co-op cards are actually members of the cooperative. You don't have to be a member to shop there, but if you sign up for membership, you're entitled to a share of the profits of that business, and it's usually linked to how much you actually spend there. So the more you put into the cooperative, the more you can get out. And you should know your co-op. So just because you're applying to a store that says the co-op on the side of it or on the front, you might be applying to different cooperatives. There's lots of different cooperative societies. So find out which one you're actually applying to and know that name. It actually pays a dividend to its members. So when you get to the end of the year, it will pay out a dividend based on how much money it's made to its actual members, who can use that money to spend in the store. And that's a big thing that differentiates the co-op from other businesses, is that they actually send money to their shoppers. It has higher ethical standards, so things like free trade, sustainability are very, very important. And the co-op also gives back a lot to the community, and you want to look at the projects that they're funding and how your store is involved in its local community. If we go back all the way to the very, very, very start of the co-op, it came from the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers, and that dates all the way back to 1844. So it's a very old business. And 1844 is a good number to remember, and that Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers is a good thing to just drop in your interview, because no one who hasn't done their research would ever know that. That's a great fact. And perhaps even the person interviewing you doesn't know about that. So definitely memorize that one. They expanded very, very much when they took over a supermarket called Summerfield's, and that increased the number of stores. And it may be that the store you're applying to actually was a former Summerfield, and that could be a good fact for your interview. They are not just in food. They also have a big insurance business. They did have a financial business as well, but they sold that to Royal London. They've got Co-op Legal Services. They're very, very big in the funeral care market. If you see convenience stores with NISA, that is part of the Co-op, and that brings in their collective buying power. They've got Co-op Bank, and they also have Co-op Energy, and they have other services. So make sure you're aware of the wider services that the Co-op provides. And another top tip is just read the Co-op Group's annual report. And that will give you the most up-to-date, detailed information about the Co-op, and you can drop in loads of facts about that and actually mention that you read it. That is a really impressive thing to do. So just type into Google Co-op Group annual report, have a flick through it, and just write down 3 or 4 things in that report, and you'll be super well prepared for your interview. So hopefully this has really helped you prepare for the questions you could get about the Co-op. The next thing we need to do is look at some specific questions that they might ask you. For example, why do you want to work at the Co-op? Obviously, this question is very, very likely to come up and is one that you want to actually plan out an answer and have some bullet points and memorize before your interview, because it's going to be so important to deciding whether or not you get the job. So let's look at the things that you need to talk about, and we'll start planning out and building up an answer for you. So the first thing is think about, what would you enjoy about the job? What would you enjoy about working at the Co-op? Would you enjoy working with customers? Do you enjoy working in shops? Have you done it before? Is this something that you would be really passionate about? Think about all the things in the job that you would enjoy and find fun. Because if you're going to enjoy the job, then that's a good explanation for your motivation, and it suggests that you're going to be better at the job. Then think about, why do you want to work in retail? Have you worked in retail before and enjoyed it? Have you got a real passion for working with customers? Do you enjoy the various jobs that you do while working in a retail store? You could talk about that in your interview. Think about progression and your long-term plans. So do you want to work in retail for a very, very long period of time? Do you see the Co-op as being a big part of your career? If you do, you could talk about that, how you're joining at one particular level, but you've got ambitions to be a store manager or a team leader, and that's where you see yourself going in maybe the next 5 to 10 years. Perhaps you are really, really passionate about that as being your career. You could talk about that if that's the case. You can talk about the Co-op's values, that you're specifically choosing the Co-op. You could go and work for Tesco or Morrison's or Asda, but actually you think the Co-op is better. You'd rather work for a cooperative society, and you care about your local community, and you care about sustainability and free trade and fair trade. And these are things that are very, very important to you, and you can match your personal values to the Co-op's values and talk about that. You want to show enthusiasm. So you want to seem extremely interested in the job and not just like, well, it's just any old job. You want to be really passionate about that, because that will help you score higher. Certain things that you must not say, because it will completely blow your whole interview. If you say things like, I live next to the Co-op, well, yes, that's quite useful for you, but that's not very relevant to the person interviewing you. Just need money, or you give the idea that you're taking the job at the Co-op, but you don't really want to work there for more than 5 minutes. You're just doing it to get some money until you could go do something better. And the first time a decent job comes along, you're going to jump ship and be gone. That is not the thing that you want to bring up in your interview. Your interview is not the time to talk about what you're going to do when you leave. This is the time to convince them to employ you. Anything that is just not of interest to the Co-op or not relevant to them is something that you don't want to talk about. Some inspiration, you could talk about your love of the Co-op brand. So if you've shopped there for a very long time and had a good experience of using them, you could talk about that. If you're passionate about the cooperative movement and you believe in consumer ownership, that's a great thing to talk about. Your experience as a customer, talk about loving working with customers, loving that customer service, because that's going to be a big part of your job. And if you've got any previous experience working in anything customer facing or grocery or retail related, talk about positive experiences there, and that can help show your motivation. The next question I want to look at is one that they could ask very early in the interview process, which is simply, tell me about yourself. and there's some key things that you want to pack in. So they probably will start the interview quite informally and just ask you to introduce yourself or something like that. And this is a missed opportunity for a lot of people. There's things that you can mention that help you get the job, help them see that you're a great candidate for the job. But people often just say very simple things and give a short answer and miss this massive opportunity to make a good case for why you should be employed. So let's look at the things you want to talk about. There's three fundamental pillars that you want to have in your answer. Firstly, you want to talk about all your experience. Secondly, your personal qualities and what you can bring to the role because of the qualities that you have as a person. And then you want to express your interest in the role once you've been through these points. So start by saying the previous jobs that you've done. So anything that's relevant. You don't have to list every single job. Some might not be very relevant to this. Talk positively about your previous jobs, how this links to this one. Any experience you've got working with customers, talk really positively about your customer service experience that you've got and why that's going to make you really great for this role. And if you have any qualifications at all that would be useful to the role, and that could even be high school qualifications or secondary school or college, anything that helps make the case that you're well qualified for the role, this is the time to mention it. Don't expect them to ask about your qualifications. Tell them what qualifications you have. If you are a very reliable person, now is a good time to mention that. You are also very professional, and that if you are employed there, you'll represent the business in a professional way. You can also mention that you're a team player and you enjoy working with other people and you get on well with team members and you've got lots of successful experience working in teams. Next thing you do is you talk about your interest in the role. So say how you're passionate about consumer cooperatives and you really like how the co-op runs their business and you want to be a part of that. Talk about how you share the co-op's values, that you're interested in free trade, that you're fair trade rather, that you're interested in sustainability, climate change, and giving back to your community. These are things that you have as values and that matches up to the co-op's goals. And just make sure that you say that you love working in retail, you love working with customers, you enjoy working in a shop, that's something that you find really interesting, really have a passion for. Because if you're not interested in working in a shop and you would hate it, perhaps this job isn't for you and maybe you're not the greatest hire. This has got to be something that you want to do. And then we can move on to the next question. I want to do this one very generally. So the co-op is known for asking lots of questions around, describe a time when you did this. Tell me about a time when you did this. Give me an example of this. And these are often answered very badly. Firstly, people don't take long enough to think about their example. They just jump straight into a bad example. Take a minute, think carefully, maybe get them to repeat the question. Don't jump into an answer. It's fine to give, 1 minute, 30 seconds silence while you just think carefully and then put one together. Once you've got an answer, what you want to start by doing is following the STAR process. So you start talking about the situation. So what was the situation? Then what was your task? What did you need to do? Then your action, what did you actually do? And then what was the result? And it has to be a good example that shows something positive. So let's give an example for great customer service, because that is one of the most common ones they ask for. So here is a great answer. So a customer came into a store where I worked specifically to buy a train cake for their autistic son, which they found was out of stock. So there's a problem. Then you talk about the task. So the task is obviously quite important to get this specific design, which was not on the shelf, so it's gone. We needed to do everything we can for the customer. So you really care about customer service and you want to get it right every time. Then talk about the action. What did you do in this situation? So checked the storeroom, found out that we had none. They were all sold out, obviously. However, I called our store in the next town and they put one aside for her. So you've done something and you've solved the problem. What was the result? Something really positive. The customer was delighted with the outstanding service they received. She bought 2 cakes and dropped one off for the staff at my store. So you've basically had a problem, you've solved it, and the customer is extremely happy with the result. This is how you answer these sort of questions. You have a situation, what's the task, what did you do, what's the action, and then what's the results. This is called the STAR technique. The co-op has lots of different ones that I've heard that they've used in their interviews. So what I'd recommend is that you have a good example of customer service, a good example of teamwork, a time where you've had to speak up. So someone has said something that's a bad idea, suggested something that's bad or wrong, and then you've had to actually speak up, or someone was doing something dangerous. These are all things you need to plan for, and they can often ask for a time where you've shown leadership. So make sure that you just have 1 or 2 words for each of these, that if they ask about teamwork, I'm going to go with this example. If they ask about leadership, this is my example. So you're not going to be caught out in the most likely ones you're prepared for. So before we finish, as a bonus, here are some questions that you could ask at the end of your interview to impress them. Make sure that you have questions planned, because if you say you don't have any questions, that goes down like a lead balloon. It's a terrible idea. So here are some questions you could ask. So firstly, show your interest in the role. Ask them to tell you about what the next steps in the process are. Show that you really care about getting this job, and so you're interested in what happens next. You could ask about how does this store engage with the community and what projects does it support. Show that that's something you're really interested in, and that's showing your alignment with the co-op's values. Then you could ask about the team that you're going to be working with. Show that you're really interested in your co-workers. You could also ask what are the characteristics of successful and effective co-op team member. And that means that you can engage in a discussion about how your skills match what is important to the co-op and what skills they're looking for versus what skills you have. And you can reiterate the case that you're a really good hire for this role. And the last one is you must make up one during your interview. So sometimes in the interview, they'll say something and you'll think, I don't quite get that, or I wonder about that, then ask about it. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe below, and also comment on any questions that you got and share your experience for other people. If this video was helpful to you, please like and subscribe. Don't forget to do that. It's very important. It helps promote these videos. And finally, thank you very much for watching.